Matthew chapter number 16, verses number 16, 17, and 18. And Simon Peter answered and said, Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered and said unto him, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say unto thee, that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. This is commonly known as the Great Confession. Peter was so bold as to answer the Master's question. Peter answered from his heart, and apparently from the Master's response is what the Father himself had put on the heart of Peter. And he said, You're blessed because the Father gave you this. And then he said, And I say unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Now, there's different takes at what was being said here. You can look at different translations saying, Thou art Peter, which is a rock, and upon this rock I will build my church. Some organizations say that Christ is saying that he built the church upon Peter. Now, you could take that if you want to. There's plenty of other scriptures that call God the rock. If you wanted to look at it, you can go back to Deuteronomy 32 and 31, and it says, For their rock is not our rock, even our enemies themselves being judged. And it goes forth, and there's so many other scriptures. When Moses smote the rock the first time to bring water for the children of Israel, and he was supposed to speak to the rock, symbolically that could mean the Master, how he was smitten the first time, but the second time he was not supposed to be smitten. But I mean, there's so many scriptures that could refer to, and that do refer to, God as being the rock. Or another interpretation states that this could mean that Peter's confession, in other words, the God working in man, is what he will build his church upon. And that certainly is a wonderful viewpoint. It has a lot of validity. It shows a spirit moving church as well, and the Spirit of God having control in the lives of men. So that's a good take on that scripture. We're going to look at another take just to give you some variety. Dr. Tim Brown has an article on this very subject, and it's a very good article on the internet, and we're just going to scroll through this. And it talks about context, and we have to know what actually happened. And we went through and we showed earlier where Christ took his disciples to the region or the coast of Caesarea Philippi. And we talked about that earlier, how Caesarea Philippi, and we talked about that earlier, how Caesarea Philippi was up here. It was very, very far north. Here's the Sea of Galilee, where Christ did most of his ministry. This is Mount Hermon, and Caesarea Philippi was at the base of Mount Hermon, and it was known for its notorious pagan worship. Caesarea Philippi was one of the worst places in this entire region for pagan worship. And Christ came to this region. You may want to ask yourself why. And then we see the events that actually lead up. This is the cliff of the gods, the rock of the gods, where they worship so many shrines. You had a shrine here for Pan, the half goat, half man god. You had a shrine for Caesar. Then you had a shrine for the fertility god. And like we said before, this cave led into a grotto where the river. And it was widely accepted and believed that this mouth of the cave was the gates of hell, where Baal went to and fro from the underworld via this portal, if you may say, because they believed that he did it via the fresh running water that flowed in this cave. So this was commonly known well before Christ and his disciples actually got here as the gates of hell. Why would Christ say at this place the gates of hell shall not prevail? Christ could have been saying the very worst place for pagan worship, the very portal where Satan himself and his gods and his nymphs go to and fro, they will not overpower my kingdom. We said before how they have etchings on a wall, and they have some vulgar etchings. Pan, the half goat, half man god, having sexual relations with goats, and other fertility gods, and terrible. This was Sin City at its best. But I believe Christ was trying to tell his followers, don't be afraid. Go right into the heart of the devil and break down his works with this gospel. This gospel is more powerful than the most wickedest city that we can find. And the gates of hell shall not prevail against his assembly, ecclesia, his body of baptized believers. God, we bless your name. We give you glory. We give you praise. Help us to stand and be strong. Thank God.